Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Modern Squid podcast, where we get to know the people behind our favorite writers and brands. On this episode, we have Nina from She Wolf Moto Co. All right. So I did mention my first question that I like to ask folks is on a scale of full squid to full atgat, where do you typically fall?
I would have to say I'm probably more atgat than squid, just because I've broken a bone before and it was not fun, and I don't want to do that again. And I feel like it's super important to, I guess, just be protected all the time, because you just never really know. And, you can trust yourself all day, but you really don't know what's out there. And it's just better to be safe, for the most part. I mean, I'm even like, I'll put on my gear even if I'm just going to lunch with somebody down the street. I mean, I'd rather just know that I'm going to be protected if somebody wants to, cut me off or anything like that.
Yeah, I totally get it. I did name the podcast the full squid, or the modern squid, but I am full atgat.
Cool.
So yeah. Anyway, so I noticed in a bunch of your profiles and stuff, you're pretty vocal about being vegan. And I did see that you were looking into coming up with vegan protective gear. And I wonder, are you trying to develop vegan protective gear because you haven't been able to find any on the market, or it's just like it's there, but it's hideous? What's the motivator for that?
I would say it's probably like a combination. I mean, in the very beginning, when I first started writing, that was kind of like my main concern, is mostly just not being able to find the exact gear that I needed. A, it wasn't vegan, and B, yes, it was not very very attractive looking. So I feel like I had problems in every category. And I just, specifically, it was actually vegan gloves that I was looking for. And I'm still on the hunt for a perfect vegan glove. Yes, I've found alternatives. I've found, other options. There's actually certain companies that are willing to actually make you their vegan version of a glove, but for the cost and for the style and just the type, that wasn't really what I'm willing to, I guess, per se, invest in, just because I didn't really believe in every aspect of it. And it's hard for me to kind of support a leather line, if I'm trying to kind of do things, I'm trying to start, going in that direction of being able to make vegan gear. So I think it was a little bit of everything. I have since done my research, since I did my research before I started the company for the vegan glove, and I didn't find it. So that was a push towards the beginning of my company. But then there was other alternatives that I had found throughout the time, where I was, getting pointed in other directions from other women writers and other vegan women writers that were like, oh, try this. This is great. Or, and then I just kind of follow that and go from there.
Okay. So then were you able to eventually find a pair of vegan gloves that you were happy with, or?
Not yet. I do have a few pairs, but they're not, it's either one's I have one that's comfortable, but it isn't very protective. It looks cool, but it's not, necessarily going to, protect you from any falls or anything like that. So it's very fashionable, you could say. So I have yet to find the perfect pair for gloves. There's another brand, I think it's called Olympia. And I was just on the hunt. I mean, before I started She Wolf, and I was just kind of trying to find, something that could just work just for, everyday kind of thing. And I found that brand, and for the most part, it was probably the best glove I had found so far, but it was missing the fit for a woman's hand. That's what it was. It was a unisex sizing, and I didn't feel like it was very, just very accommodating for my type.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Hopefully I'm not making it too controversial, but I know vegans have different stances on things. And one of the questions I had when I was kind of looking through your site and such was, did you ever consider maybe some secondhand leather gloves as a quote unquote vegan option? Or is that just, you don't even want to be associated with the leather regardless of the fact that it's secondhand? Or
in the very beginning, when I first started writing, I I love vintage clothing, and I've collected over the years, and I've had a lot of, leather vintage goods before. And I did actually use leather, and because there wasn't any other way for me, and I'd yet to research, all the other brands out there and the women motorcycle brands that I had recently found. And I think for me, it was almost like I'm going to wear this until I find something that's going to work for my lifestyle and my fit and everything. So I feel like, in the very beginning, before I guess fully committed to the lifestyle, I would. And then something just kind of like, I guess just one day I was just kind of like, I'm done with the leather thing. I have leather. I still have certain boots that I'll wear, but I'm not buying anything new, and I'm not really buying anything recycled anymore. I'm actually trying to like transition completely out of that. I haven't yet fully, but as far as like gear goes, I don't really wear anything leather anymore, besides a pair of gloves that I have that are just all I have. And then also sometimes shoes. I have vegan motorcycle shoes that are just vegan docks. So they're actually great to ride in because they're lightweight and they actually break in faster. So they're a lot more comfortable, and I swear by them. And they actually like wear in like leather as well too. And they bend great and they form your foot perfectly, and they're way lighter than docks. So like actual docks. So I feel like they're just perfect. So I actually just ride in those most of the time, but sometimes I'll put on like my leather boots just because.
Okay. So you mentioned the Doc Martens, the vegan version of the Doc Martens, and how they've got some give and such. I guess I just started riding back I rode for the first time in November and just bought my own bike in end of March, beginning of April, something to that effect. And so this stuff's all at the top of my mind because I was just doing the research for it. But one of the things I was seeing was that with a good boot for motorcycling, you want it to be rigid so it doesn't actually bend. So do you feel like for you, that's just where your compromise between style, the vegan lifestyle, and safety kind of really intersects in the best way possible for you? Or is it really just basically there's no options vegan out there that are more rigid so that you don't like break an ankle?
As far as like the rigid goes, I feel like where it needs to be strong, it holds pretty well. It does the same wear as what a vegan, like a regular Doc Marten would do. It's mostly just like it forms to your foot. But as far as like the base goes, it's pretty rigid. There are other brands that I have looked into, but I actually haven't experienced yet. There's a shoe line called Vegetarian Shoes, and they're actually steel toe. And they're just like Docs, but they look a little more stiff for sure. I just actually haven't bought them yet. And I'm just so into my boot. And even with leather, like if you were to wear leather Doc Martens, I mean, they're not actual motorcycle boots. I just know a lot of women that actually wear them because that's also like a hard thing to find in the women's motorcycle community. There are great lines out there that make motorcycle boots, but they're not quite right yet. I guess I just haven't found the boot that I truly believe in. So I just know a lot of women that I personally ride with actually just ride with Doc Martens. But I would like to give the vegetarian boot a try just because I feel like it's a lot more rigid. And as far as like the steel toe goes, I'm all for that. So I'd like to see how that works out.
Yeah, I'd love a steel toe as well. I had the hardest time finding boots. Out of all the gear that I bought, the thing that was the hardest for me was the boots. And the problem for me was that my feet are slightly different sizes. One is kind of wide and one is long. Mm-hmm. And so if I got boots that fit one of them, then the other one wouldn't fit, Yeah. And I found one pair that fit me perfect at one of the Harley dealerships, but it was hideous.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Cycle Gear and trying on probably 4 or 5 pairs of boots in Cycle Gear too before I found a pair that actually, number one, fit, number two, didn't look hideous, and also had sort of that ankle torsion control so that if I fall over, the bike doesn't snap my ankle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, I mean, even on the men's side, it's just, I think, well, for whatever reason, folks just have not dialed in motorcycle boots.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I have these and like I said, I have like vintage, motorcycle wear that I still wear just because I have it. And I think it's no use getting, thrown it away because that defeats the whole purpose of what I believe in. So with those boots, they're like, I don't even know, I want to say they're from the 90s maybe, but they're pretty solid for the most part. And I really like wearing those on longer rides just because they hold, together. And I just feel safer with them because they're just a little tighter on the ankle part, but like they feel like they move, it just has a good support feel. But I have yet to find another pair like that. So it's like, I'm not going to invest in something that's leather because that's not what I believe in. So once I find the perfect vegan alternative to that, that's kind of when I'll go in that direction. But yeah, it's definitely a constant struggle. And I know that there's more for sportswear kind of style. They have a women's vegan motorcycle boot that people always mention. There's a few articles that I've read before about like vegan moto wear, and it lists like several lines, and they're all kind of like sportswear style, and that's cool, but it's not really like the look I'm really going for. And that's what's so hard is the balance. Like, where do you find that comfort with that style and the lifestyle that you live to? It's just kind of been like an ongoing search, and I have found my favorites as far as like that goes. And I do have protective gear. There's a brand called Blackbird motorcycle wear, and it's all women's line. Actually, I don't know, they might have men's stuff too. But I have a full on, it's a Kevlar line, and then it has armor inside that you can like take in and take out. So like on hotter days, if you want to just like kind of rock the Kevlar, only you can. But I love that jacket, and like super secure, feel super safe. I wear it almost every time I ride, but I have another jacket from Revit that I wear, and that's all denim and like Dyneema. So feel pretty good about those for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. I tried to do the vegan thing for a few months, and so I have got some insight into vegan thought processes and things. Yeah. And my girlfriend is she's making the transition to vegan. Mm-hmm. So she's mostly vegan, but she has days where she kind of relapses and has something dairy or whatever.
For sure.
But anyway, I was part of a lot of the different vegan Facebook groups and such for Arizona. And that's where I was wondering how you felt about sort of secondhand items, because it seemed like there was a small portion of vegans who were fine with leather and such, as long as you were buying them secondhand and weren't directly supporting the companies that were manufacturing them, because their thought process was better that it don't go into a landfill. So you're not contributing to fast fashion and all that sort of stuff too. And at the same time, like if you needed something like, motorcycle gloves or a motorcycle jacket, you could get something safe while you took your time to find something vegan. And then there was the other camp. Actually, it seemed like the majority of the vegans in the groups were just like, never wear vegan. It's like advertising. I mean, never wear leather. It's like advertising for leather and promoting leather and all these things. And that's the reason I kind of asked, to try to find out where you fell on that sort of scale.
No, thanks for asking. It's a hard line sometimes because it's like, we're human. We learn as we go. I'm constantly learning. I mean, even about veganism, it was kind of like a lifestyle change for me. And when I decided to actually commit to it, it was one of those things where I can live without cheese. I can live without eggs. And that's the thing that people say, oh, I can't live without this. And it's like, well, I said that too, but I converted slowly over time. And then it just became something that I felt really strongly about. So then, over time, you're constantly growing, you're constantly changing. And for me, it was a matter of, I guess once I started She Wolf, it was more of a commitment factor for me to like eventually transition everything in my life to veganism, just because I feel really strongly about it. It's not just, how I eat, it's how I live. So as far as like the wear, it starts somewhere. So I probably won't buy new, but I probably won't buy recycled or used anymore, but just, like I said before, it's all the stuff that I've had. So just how it goes, I guess. Yeah.
So to switch gears to get a little bit more directly motorcycle related, I'd read somewhere, and I don't remember where exactly, but I'd read that you were the first woman in your family to ride a motorcycle, but people in your family have ridden motorcycles for several generations, it sounds like.
Yeah, and actually that has changed. I just found out that, and this might be where it came from. I don't know, but I had never known. Recently, I found out that my aunts, two of my aunts, had actually ridden motorcycles in Mexico. So I am first generation here from my dad's side. Most of my family's from Mexico, Mexico City, and I had no idea that two of my aunts actually rode out there because it's an easy way of transportation. The streets are crazy out there where they lived. So to get around, I mean, a lot of them learned how to, take alternate transportation. So I didn't know this. I found this out like maybe last month. And this was, I think that interview had been from, I don't remember, but it was before that. So yeah, I'm the first woman that I had known of, but definitely on my mom's side for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So are both your parents from Mexico or just one of them?
Just my dad. So my mom's from here and my dad's from Mexico. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend's from Mexico, actually.
Awesome. What part?
Juarez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So she's right there on the border, and she went to UTEP, which is in El Paso, Texas. So
yeah. That's awesome. Cool. My boyfriend's from Texas. I know it's not, it's north, but yeah.
Yeah. Where in Texas is he from?
Houston.
Houston. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet?
We actually met through family of mine. We were introduced through music. He's a traveling musician and he was on tour here, and we had been introduced by my cousin. So that's kind of how we met.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Did you guys get introduced with the goal of dating, or was it just, hey, I'm hanging out with this guy who happens to be here. This is my cousin, blah, blah, blah.
I thought it was kind of just like a random hang, and I guess it was more of like he was like, hey, you got any friends? My cousin's like, yeah, I'll call my cousin up. So it was more of like I didn't know about it, but I guess they all had these intentions of kind of sort of, introducing to date. So it just worked out. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Now, what does he ride?
He rides a 1989 FXR Harley.
Oh, okay. Is it Dyna or just?
I think it's just FXR Dyna. Yeah, I guess it's a Dyna. So I'm
still learning all the models for Harley. So
there's so much to know, and like I'll assume that it's something because from what I know, and then I'll get corrected. Like, no, it's this. So I'm just like, I don't know. There's just a lot out there, so I know as much as experience. Yeah.
So I looked, like I said, I was looking into some of your articles and such, and it sounds like you went from a 1982 Honda CB125 to a Honda Shadow to a Sportster. How did you make the jump from Honda to Harley?
I just test rode the bike, and I literally it was kind of like a no-brainer for me. I mean, I didn't even plan on upgrading my Shadow for a long time. I had only had my Shadow for maybe about 8 months. And I had a friend, it was actually my boyfriend's old boss, whose wife used to ride, and he used to work in the shop, and they used to work together. And basically he was trying to sell the bike, and he had asked my boyfriend, like, hey, you think Nina would be interested in buying the Harley? And I was kind of like, what? That's a lot. That's pretty intense. I mean, it just seemed like such a jump from what I was riding to what I would be riding. And I just told him, like, I'll try to test ride it. I'll see how I feel, but there's no, I'm definitely interested. I mean, I never thought that I would ever ride a Harley just because it just wasn't, I was more into like the cafe racer, style bike. And I loved my Hondas, and I felt like I was so, I guess just, they were so reliable. And that transition was just a matter of test riding. And immediately I was just like, woof, like, this is great. I can't explain like the difference in the experience between that. I mean, there was just no question about it. It was like, yeah, I want that bike. So, so that's kind of how it happened. So it was an accidental purchase in a sense, but I'm definitely grateful for that experience.
That's awesome. So what year's you got an 8083, right?
Yeah. It's 2002.
So is it still carbureted?
Yeah, it has a SNS So I'm pretty stoked on that. It's easier to work on for sure.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two schools of thought. A lot of times with that, it's the people who just don't want to bother with a carb, and then the people who are like, yeah, but you can do more stuff yourself if it's carbureted.
Totally. And I'm grateful for that too. I mean, just because I don't know if this is like a thing, but I feel like I have people that I know that have more problems with their newer bikes. And I don't know if that's a thing, but I just feel like I'm grateful that I can actually learn to know my bike and work on it myself. And it just seems more personal that way.
I was talking to a friend of mine whose whole family's been into Harley for years and years when I was looking for a bike. And I kept hearing people say how unreliable Harleys were. And if you wanted a reliable bike, you should get a metric bike. And what he was telling me was that it's true there are a lot of Harleys out there that have problems, but in his experience, it was often just that the people doing the work did it themselves. And they would do things like put on slip-ons or put on a new exhaust, and they wouldn't know how to tune it, or they wouldn't even put a tuner on. And then next thing you know, you got all these overheating issues, and heat really damages engines. So I think if whoever you bought it from was maintaining it well and knew what they were doing, then from my understanding, they're really reliable bikes. So
yeah, I think so too. I think now too, I mean, there's just so much out there, so much information that you can get to do more DIY work. And there's also ways to check your work as well. I think that with the technology, there's just been more people willing to work on things themselves too. But yeah, I've never really had little things here and there, but we've been able to fix it without actually having to go anywhere to get it fixed. And I just think it goes, I think it's the work that you want to put into it. So I'm willing to figure it out. And so is my boyfriend too. So I'm glad that we can work together on that. So it's been a fun experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how mechanically inclined were you before you bought the Harley?
Absolutely not at all. I had no education as far as I didn't even know how to change my oil. I mean, honestly, it's pretty simple now. I get it, but I didn't know a single thing about a bike before. I actually never really worked on my previous bikes. My Harley was the first bike I had actually done anything to. I didn't have the past bikes long enough to be able to get to know them a little better. So yeah, I would say I know a lot more about bikes internally now.
Okay. So you're a lot more comfortable wrenching on a bike at this point, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I definitely give my boyfriend a lot of credit. He's helped me a lot with everything, and he's a very patient man. And we work things through together just so that I know that if I'm out there, doing a ride on my own or with a group of girls or my friends or just anybody, I'm able to at least know, the basics as far as what I need to carry with me if something were to happen, and just kind of be more confident and comfortable with what I got. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea for everyone to have a mentor if they can, because I've done a lot of learning on my own on different things. Mechanically, I'm still not very good, but I own a house and I'm cheap, so I did a lot of the work myself, which meant which meant kind of learning as I go. And the jobs where I had a resource, my ex brother-in-law was he had a tile business. And so when I was retiling the bathrooms, I was able to give him a call and get advice on what I needed. And those jobs went way smoother than the ones that I had to just learn from YouTube or forums, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
so
definitely.
I think it's great that you've got a resource there, and people who might poo-poo on, using your boyfriend to help. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Use whatever resources you got,
Yeah, for sure. We're a great team. I mean, like I said, I'm stoked that he's able to we're able to work things out. And I think if he wasn't there, I would also do my own research, and there might be things that I'm a little less patient. So I think I would be the one to be like, I don't have this, I don't got this. Not that I don't believe in myself, but there's just a lot of things that I try, and then if I'm just I can't, so I'll just pass it on. But, that's why I appreciate that, is that we're able to kind of put our brains together and just work it out. I mean, we just took a trip to Solvang not too long ago. I mean, it's just only a few hours up north and really short trip, but on the way back, my bike had broken down, and it was the fuel line. There was a hole. It seemed like part of the engine had burnt through the fuel line because there was no any tape to cover it. Just, there was nothing to guard it. So it actually was burning through the line. So it stopped the gas from running through. And it was just one of those things that we both caught it together, and we were both able to find the problem, and we worked through it carrying the right stuff. And when we had that, it's a certain kind of tape that just protects it from the heat. So that was cool just to have that around. But, we both kind of found that together. So I just feel like it's always a learning experience,
Yeah.
Figure it out. So, yeah.
Now, a lot of people love to customize their Sportsters, especially Harleys in general, but Sportsters especially. Have you done any kind of customization on your bike yet, or?
Yeah, when I had purchased it, it had its own modifications that I don't think most of it was modified. There wasn't really anything stock on there. The exhaust was a Screaming Eagle exhaust that was on it, but we actually took the baffles out to make it louder. That was awesome. And just the S&S carb, I believe that was modified for sure. And then just different handlebars for easier positioning. And we got some 6-over tubes that I'm going to put in. So that'll make my handling a little differently, but I'm really looking forward to that. And just little things here and there, I guess. It's hard to think of them at the top of my head, but want to do more.
Okay, sure. Cool.
Yeah.
So how long have you been riding motorcycles, first of all?
I've been riding since 2016.
Okay. And so how long after starting to ride bikes did you decide that you wanted to do an apparel company?
It was probably not too much later than that. I had actually, when I first started riding, I went to an all women's moto market, and I had no idea what to expect. I just went because I saw a flyer. I don't even know. I just showed up, and I didn't realize it was an all women's motorcycle event. And I was just shocked, I guess, because, the world, the community is very small in a sense, depending where you live and what's out there for you. And I didn't realize it when I was walking, and I just started seeing every single booth looked to be woman owned, and there was women's motorcycle merchandise. And I just kind of looked around in awe, and I was so inspired by everybody. And I just couldn't believe, it was just like a kid in the candy store. I couldn't, I don't know. I just didn't know that world existed. And I think stumbling into that was almost this is definitely meant to be. I love this. I'm so inspired. All these women have a lot to offer to the community, but I also feel as far as the things that I saw there, I felt like I have a different style with some of the things that I had seen, although their stuff was great. I felt like I could add to it, as far as the veganism part goes. And I've got this kind of horror, spooky aesthetic. So I feel like I could definitely contribute in some way in that form. So I wanted to definitely just get it going. I feel right after that, my head was just flowing with ideas, and I had all these things in mind, and it just kind of sparked the plug for sure.
So I think that I'd read that Support Your Local She Wolf was the first t-shirt that you had designed or come up with anyway. And I don't think I read anywhere where you came up with the idea of sort of tying women to she-wolves. So where did that come from, the horror aspect, or did that come from a different spot?
Yeah, it came from a few different, definitely the horror side. I just always felt that word, that name was so empowering. I mean, there's something to be said about a she-wolf. There's just, when you hear that, you just think badass, but I also take it back to, I used to read a lot of Roman and Greek mythology and things like that. And it's always just intrigued me how things started. I'm always straight from the beginning and kind of work your way up. So I feel as far as the old Roman times where, how Rome was founded, and they were raised by a she wolf. So I feel like something like that created this entire empire. Like, I just feel like it's such an empowering thing that came from a woman. So to have something like that and just have it grow into this huge thing, I mean, I think that's kind of what the women's community is becoming. It's a movement. And I think being a she wolf is a huge part of the movement. And I feel like it comes from something so powerful and passionate. So I kind of just took that and ran with it.
Yeah. So in the things I've read about marketing, they say that you should niche down and then niche down one more time. And it does sound like you've got that down pat with the fact that not only are you making women's riding gear, which is one niche, but you've niched down further to be vegan riding gear. So I wonder how much of that was conscious, like a conscious marketing thing where you were telling yourself, if you're going to make motorcycle gear for women, you need it to be very, very specific, or how much of that was just natural because you were vegan, you couldn't find a marketplace to fulfill your need?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. I mean, like I said, I went to the market and I was like, I love all this, but I still feel like I can add something to this. Like, this isn't here, and I'm passionate about all these things. Why don't we make it a thing? And also I can give back to the community, and I can give back to other things like animals, and, just being vegan alone is giving back to animal, rights. And I just feel like I can connect all that together and just kind of have a positive support system. And I guess just kind of see where it goes. I mean, it really had no intention of, I didn't know, I guess, what to expect. I just, I would kind of like think about it when I started, and I'm like, is this weird? Am I weird? Like, that I'm doing, like, I don't know. It's just, I guess the confidence wasn't there. So I wasn't sure where it was going to turn or how it was going to be. And I feel like when I started, I knew that I thought that the community was lacking something. And I felt that if I felt that way, others would be too. And that's kind of all it took. I mean, I put it out there, and I just, kind of waited. And I would have people reach out to me and kind of just be like, where have you been all my life? Like, there's nothing like this as far as like the vegan part goes, the horror part. And I've met so many spooky horror vegan motorcycle babes that I can't even begin to tell you. And it's all because like something like this is what brings us all together. And obviously, like, finding appropriate hashtags and finding other people that way. Like, I would just like kind of do like a, cyber stalking and just be like, hey, you're vegan. Like, I'm vegan too. We both ride. Oh, you like spooky stuff too? Check me out. And I mean, there's a lot of that because I wanted to connect with people. And it was a lot of like trying to find your tribe. And I definitely found it creating something like She Wolf, and also connecting with the other women moto brands like that I looked up to from the beginning, that I used to follow and I used as an inspiration. And I feel like it kind of just morphed into what it is now.
So I had read also in one of your interviews that you originally started riding with your boyfriend, and motorcycles and the motorcycle community really started to give you an opportunity to like meet more women who rode, and you've since then started riding with more women. How much of it do you think is due to She Wolf, where you're reaching out with purpose to people to try to connect on multiple fronts, versus just you ride, and because you're riding, you're happening to run into women who also ride?
I would say that like the internet is super powerful, and I definitely have to say that She Wolf is what brought me to meeting all these women, because I'm very shy, like when it comes to meeting people in person. I mean, I'm a full-time hairstylist, and I can be great in my element when I'm in my zone. But as far as like being out there in the world, like if I'm just riding with my boyfriend and we show up somewhere like, and it's a full event, like I am not one to like go up to someone and just be like, hey, I'm very like, kept to myself as far as that goes. So I think creating something like She Wolf, it was almost like a way for me to connect with people overall. I mean, I started it to connect, and that's kind of how it started. And then I met a group of girls, and through the internet, and I found out that most of the girls were local, and that was even cooler. And then I obviously found, women writing groups like the Litas, and I kind of connected to a few women through that. And it just kind of grew from there. I did like a photo shoot in a cemetery and that was the first shoot that we had done. And all the girls that joined the shoot were super down and were so rad. And that's kind of how I began writing with actual women. And it just, the other women that I had written with had said the same thing. Like, they're just like, I'm not, the type to just go out there. And also too, like with my schedule, I'm not really like a weekend writer because I work on the weekends. So writing and meeting somebody that's also off on a Monday that's ready to like rip around town is always like really fun to do too. So, yeah.
So, I mean, I think part of it is you talked about finding your tribe. And I'm wondering, when I look through your Instagram, so many of the women that you're with seem to also kind of have that same like punk rock, but horror punk rock or something vibe. I guess I think you just added me to your personal one maybe, but before that I was just looking at She Wolf. So now I'm wondering how much of the She Wolf Instagram is curated so that you guys all have the same kind of look versus how many of those are the women that just became your customers and already were going to be rocking your stuff and you wanted to kind of feature them on the page?
I feel like it's a combination of both. I mean, I feel like I said, like when I posted something, or like, I guess when I started She Wolf, it just attracted that crowd that was always looking for that. So that definitely does have to do with like the customer base. But when I did the spooky cemetery shoot, all the girls, aren't necessarily into that, but they were super down and super open to it. And they ended up really liking it and really wanting to rock my stuff too, obviously, because they're my friends, but they're also just like, this is rad. I love everything that this stands for. So it may not be their go-to style, but they're down to support a good cause and their friends. So that was kind of cool too. So I'd say it's a combination of both. I mean, I'm like I feel very strongly about like when I do any kind of like curated event, or if I do any photo shoots, I want it to be real women writers. Like I want there to be, anyone that is down to come shoot. And I leave it as an open invitation. I'll reach out to 30, 40 women. And if they want to show up, they can show up wearing whatever. And then, here's some shirts, here's some stickers, put them on your helmets, do whatever you want to do, just make it your own. And that's just kind of where I leave it at. I feel like it's really important to, I guess, focus on what your intentions are with the company too.
And the reason I ask is that most companies, most brands, when they have their Instagram pages will, set up shoots, either have a stylist if they're a big company, or they'll at least have an idea of what they're trying to showcase out of their line on their Instagram page. But when I'm flipping through it, it's super obvious that it's a shoot. Mm-hmm. When I was going through your page, so many of the photos just like looked like friends having fun, which is why I wanted to ask, are you just like pulling your friends in to shoot with you, or, what's going on here? Because they come across a lot more natural than some of the other brands. And I don't think there's anything wrong with shooting with models and, having a really laid out strategy or whatever. But at the same time, it loses a little bit of the authenticity that I see on your page, where everyone seems more like they're kind of having fun and they seem a lot more natural wearing the stuff they're wearing. That's what I was like, I wonder if she's just asking customers if they want to get come do a photo shoot. So
yeah, it's all really just like, for me, it's a passion project. I mean, it's something that I started with the idea of having everything be supportive and uplifting and empowering. And I feel like I'm a little, I like that whole DIY look. I like it to be pretty raw and natural and just kind of speak from the heart. I'm very like, I guess, empathic in that way. I feel like it's just, it seems to be more real when you put real people in. And that's kind of where I want to show the heart of the company. I want it to be mostly that. And I just feel like that to me is a way for people to be more confident in what they believe in. And also just I guess show real people. I mean, it's I feel like that's what the community is about. And yeah, like, I do the photo shoot thing too, just to display what I have and, content for the website and everything. But I just feel like what we need right now is just a lot of, I guess, just to show that unity in the community and just show that we're real people, we're real writers. And we also really, really like what we do. And we like each other. So I feel like it's just show it off, show what it is. And this company is based around that. I mean, it's based around caring for people and animals. And I think that should be shown in the content.
Yeah, well, I think you do a good job with it because it definitely comes across as genuine. So I know I'd sent you this question. So hopefully you've given a little bit of thought, because I think it's a question that a lot of people know is an issue, but don't really take a lot of time to think about it. But as far as getting more women to ride, do you think brands have a role in getting more women to ride, or do you think it's something outside of their control? And if you think they do have a role, what do you think they could do to encourage women to ride?
I mean, I feel like it's exactly how, I would put it in my own brand. Like, it's just really having that uplift and support and showing that what it means to have a woman to ride and be able to use their stuff, whatever it might be. I feel like it's great to, I guess, include women. And I feel like it's a very important thing. And this is a movement, and it's growing every single day. And I feel like it's super important to include us and, treat us as equal and have stuff for us. And if you do make gear, I mean, definitely consider the actual woman rider, not just the woman model that, I guess would display their stuff. I feel like it's really important to actually have real people involved in that and showing that support system, because I feel like it starts from bigger brands, and I feel like they need to listen to people and reach out to people and have an understanding of like what it is that we're looking for, as far as like if it's protective gear, like really get to know the fit. I mean, I've had that jacket from Revit that I had. It's actually a men's jacket, and it fits kind of snug in certain areas, and it's not very fitted to my shape, but I had it because it was like a vegan alternative. And I definitely like wore it until I found a woman's jacket that actually fit me correctly. So, I mean, like we make it work, but it's not really like we should have to. I feel like there should definitely be that support and uplift from those big roles and those big brands.
Okay, so you do think that brands play a role in getting women to ride?
Completely.
Okay, so it sounds like, sort of in summary, what you're saying is, listen to women about what they want or need, and make sure that you're representing them in, the different marketing materials they're putting out.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you make something a certain size, make sure that's, not just going to fit the model that's wearing it.
For sure. That's kind of like discouraging too, because you're like, that is so cool. It's super cute. Or, I don't see myself ever really wearing that, but maybe you should reach out to somebody that, that rides and kind of get the feel, kind of get to know who's willing to support you too, because that could open up a big, big marketing for them too. So I feel like they really need to be aware. I mean, there's no excuse. There's so much out there that you can see online, and it's out there. So it's just like, definitely do your research on that for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this I don't know if you've listened to any of the episodes that I've done yet, but I mentioned a lot that I've got kind of an interest in marketing. And for me, the biggest group of opportunity, in my opinion, for growth is women riders, because all the data shows that most of the riders are men. So if you're looking to expand your sales, why would you not start focusing on a gigantic, women are more than 50% of the population. Why would you not focus some of your marketing attention on them?
For sure.
And that's why I like seeing companies like you and like Chic Riot. And there's another one that starts with an A. Atwyld. Yeah. Atwyld really making a focused effort to make gear that is protective, that women want, and is interesting.
Definitely.
You know, when I was talking to Chic Riot, one of the things they were saying was that, you know, they basically could find women's gear it was basically a male version, or they would take a male version and turn it pink. And those were your options.
And that's not real.
Yeah. I mean, some women like pink, but not everyone who's a woman loves pink, right?
For sure. It's so true. And there's a few brands that I specifically like, and one's a woman owned, and she's a writer too, and it's a Stellar Moto brand, and she specifies in like real women riders, and you know, all of her models are real riders, and her brand's awesome, and everything is just fit to shape you and also be really comfortable, and Dyneema based, and she makes jeans and jumpsuits, and it's just amazing stuff. And I really like respect her line completely, because she is everything that she sets a great example for, you know, other brands that I think should definitely take that into consideration when they're making moto gear, for sure. And Tobacco is also another brand that Tobacco Moto wear, and they actually to make their prototypes, they use real women riders, and they actually do like test shoots or test videos to kind of see how the ride, how the pants wear and everything. So I really appreciate them too as a brand.
I'll have to check out the Stellar Motor brand.
Yeah.
Now
Jen Stellar is the owner. She's really awesome. Sweet.
Is it Stellar or Stellar?
Stellar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tobacco Motor Company, or I think it's Tobacco, was it Motor Brand, or it's
Motorwear. Yeah.
Motorwear. There you go. I saw a few of their ads on Instagram, and I went and checked their stuff out. And I've got a personal thing about using dead Native Americans as imagery. Mm-hmm. And so I personally won't buy anything from them, because I don't like people who do that.
For sure. I understand that completely.
You know,
yeah.
What I mean? But they do have some super cool stuff. And if you don't have the same thoughts about the, situation that I do, people might love it.
For sure. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Get that.
I know that California kicked in a lot of restrictions fast, at least faster than some other parts of the country. Are you back in your salon now, or are you still out of the salon?
Well, you could say out of salon, because I'm doing the outdoor haircut thing. I don't know if you saw anything like that. I'm very selective though about like what I book outside. I think it's the stupidest thing right now. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about it, just because I spent years of training, safety and sanitation. And I feel like it's kind of, not to get too into it. I feel like it's unfair right now. So fortunately, I'm able to do what I can to work, and I am doing the outdoor salon thing. We have an alley right next to my salon. I work in a downtown area, and the alley's closed off. It's gated. So I'm actually able to bring clients back there safely and kind of have this like bungalow, like urban aesthetic. Yeah. So I've been able to transform it into something that's doable for the time being. But I'm only working a few days a week, and I'm doing a very selective procedures, as I'm not able to do just anything that includes washing someone out. So basically mostly haircuts, or somebody wants me to slap on some color and they go home and wash it. I mean, that just sounds so bizarre. It's weird, really weird times we're living in, but I'm able to accommodate people or send them home with color kits, at home, applications and whatnot. But it's been a little weird, but yeah, I'm only doing that a few days a week right now, just because it's a lot, and the weather conditions can be a little rough at times, and I'm not one for heat. So
yeah,
I know that's not saying much considering you're from Arizona, but or in Arizona.
Well, it's relative, right? Because my girlfriend and we live together, and for instance, yesterday we went for a ride in the car just to get out of the house for a little bit, and because we're both working from the house. And we get our groceries delivered and all that kind of stuff. So we really don't have a big need to get out of the house most days. So we tried to go for a drive yesterday, and her car, the AC is going out. So it works a little bit, but not that much. And by the time we got home, she was dying and I was fine. So, person to person, location to location, it's pretty individual. So one of the reasons I was asking about the salon, though, was I also read in one of your articles that you were using your the money you were making at the salon to fund She Wolf. So now that the salon is kind of slowed down, have you been lucky enough that She Wolf had picked up enough to kind of support itself, or how are you doing with that?
Well, within the last last year or so, I have like a separate account for She Wolf stuff. So I feel like if anything comes in, it's going directly back into, making new stuff. So I do have those separate, but when I first started, a lot of my investing was directly from, my job. So I feel like it was definitely something that I had like saved up for, or, put a little in at a time just to get it started. And now that I have like its own account, it's almost like its own, entity. So I'm able to pull from that if I need anything, or just kind of recycle back into it. But I still put money into it from like, doing hair and everything. It's just right now I'm at this weird in between, obviously, because of everything that's been going on. And it's really hard to, I guess, find where you want to go with it next because of everything. The first month in the pandemic, there was a lot of outside support, like new support, where everyone was just like, support local, support small. So there was a really good month that I wasn't doing hair, and that was actually keeping me afloat. And it was awesome because I never really liked to, dip into that part of my, I guess, financial stuff, but I felt like I had to because I couldn't, I wasn't doing it, and there was just a lot of non-support from other places. So yeah, like I feel like it almost turned around at some point during the pandemic, and then now it's kind of just back to having its own thing, and then hair being its own thing. So
are you using any of the time that you're not working now? Have you started kind of shifting gears where you're putting more effort into She Wolf than you had before, mostly probably because you just didn't have the time? Because I know what it's like having two different jobs and trying to split your time between the two. It's always a really delicate balancing act, and there's always some demand for your time from one of them, right? So
yeah. Like the first few months I was really into it. I was just like all about it. It's like, this is great. I'm staying busy. I'm able to post more. I'm able to be a little more, I guess, alert when things come in or people ask questions. I'm able to respond faster. So I kept pretty busy the first few months of not working or not doing hair. And that really was my saving grace for a lot of things. And it was going really great. I had all these ideas. And then, as time went by, it was almost just like, okay, I'm losing motivation. I want to go back to work. There's just a lot of things that kind of play into that. And I felt like it was definitely like a roller coaster of emotions. And to have She Wolf is like a baby. I feel like there's a lot of things that you have to put a lot of attention into it. And I was able to in the beginning, and it kind of slowed down, and then I kind of slowed down. So I feel like there was ideas flowing, and then there's just a lot of world problems recently. So I tried to kind of shift my platform for something a little more important. And more worldly issues. So I felt like I was able to kind of focus on that more. And that it's great to have something like that where I can utilize my platform to be able to focus on things that can help the world. So as much as possible, I guess, from my behalf. So I'm glad I had that. So yeah.
Okay. So have you made any progress on, I think I saw at some point that you were trying to get into the protective gear, but you were still researching like people who could do the sewing for you, I think, and maybe even some of the material sourcing. Have you made some headway on that, or how's that coming along?
I think when everything kind of started, just during the past few months, it's been really hard to kind of the motivation has really been there, but I'm all for it. I've looked into certain things. There's like a mushroom based leather that I've seen, which is really cool. There's like a pineapple based leather that I've looked into. I'm trying to go more in that direction versus like a plastic source. And I obviously want it to be durable and safe and, fall friendly, you know what I mean? So definitely protective. So that's just kind of like, I don't know a single thing about, I guess, making anything. I just have a vision of what I want it to be. So that's been my hardest part. I've been doing my own research as far as like reaching out to people that do sew and that do make things. And I've been told that making gloves and things like that is like a specialty. And it's just really hard to find everything that I'm looking for to mold into one. So I haven't had any sudden progress from that. I feel like I'm still kind of at this like stuck. I'm kind of stuck with it. And it gets frustrating. And then I'm like, okay, I know there's a reason why I'm stuck. It's probably because it can't be possible right now. And I think that I'm definitely not going to give up on it. But as far as like progress goes, I wouldn't say it's too far from where we left off. There was a friend I had who sewed, and she had made like a prototype glove and for me based off a glove that she had, and it was okay. Like she was like, I don't know about this. So she kind of gave up on that. And she's like, yeah, this is hard. Like, you're right. And so I think that at least my mind's still focused on it and still set on it. I definitely am determined, but slowly but surely, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, I wonder how much She Riot might be able to give you some advice, because Tabitha, she learned to sew all on her own, basically, and she does like couture gowns and things like that now. And then she learned how to do the jackets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are super nice people, Tabitha and Kid. And I'm wondering if you guys got together and chatted, if they'd be able to point you at least in a direction, because I doubt that they would be against giving you some advice if you wanted it. You know?
I mean, that would be super cool. I listened to that episode of them, and they seem like great people. And I actually went on and followed her from the She Wolf account. So
cool.
Definitely inspired by that. Doing great things for the community for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the goals I have for the Modern Squid is to kind of talk to people who are outside of the typical, like, I don't know, Dyna Bro aesthetic, where they're just kind of talking about how much torque something has and, how fast it goes. I mean, those are things that interest me too, but I feel like there's just a million places to hear that information. But for me, I've always been a curious person. So, and I like small businesses, and I like people that are trying to do something different. Which is why I was happy that you agreed to talk to me, because I was looking through your stuff and I was like, another company that's doing cool stuff. I like this, I like seeing people who have a passion for what they're doing and they just do it.
Yeah. I feel the same way about that. I feel the same way about small business and brands, and even starting something like this. Like, it just opened my world to so many other things and other small brands and other woman-owned brands, and definitely people that I fully stand behind and that I respect, and that are now great friends of mine that I never would have thought or never would have imagined, if I didn't get into something like this. I mean, I feel like motorcycles definitely saved my life. As far as there's so many things, great aspects of riding motorcycles. I feel like it's just saved a lot of people, and that those are the people that I would say are really good friends of mine, just because we have so much to agree on when it comes to that. I mean, there's just such a passion involved with it. And it's not just, the motorcycle itself. There's a whole journey that goes with it. So why would you say that motorcycles saved your life in particular? I mean, I feel like I'm such a workaholic. Like, I work all the time, and I put a lot of my energy into that. And I didn't really have anything that I could say that I was, I guess, excited for besides that. I foster, so I do fostering, and that was something that I was pretty passionate about. I'm still very passionate about, but I didn't have, there's just something missing. And I feel like when my boyfriend started riding out here in California, when he moved out here, I was very inspired by that. And we'd go on little rides, and it just does something to your mind that I'm sure that I can't really explain to people that don't ride. And I just feel like it was definitely my therapy, I would say. Like if I felt a certain way or was stressed about work or, upset about something in the foster system with animals, or just anything in general, like I have something to escape to. And then I also can use it for something, as far as meeting up with friends or enjoying the ride. And there's just a lot that it has done for me mentally, or over physically sometimes. So I feel like it's just been a very good thing in my life.
So when you say that you do fostering, are you talking about fostering animals or fostering
Animals.
children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I figured I was like, wait, it's animals. It should be specific. So yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How many fosters have you taken in so far, would you say? Do you know?
I would say it's about like 6 or 7. So I take a lot of breaks in between because it's really hard. There's so many times I wanted to keep every single animal that I've had, and you get really attached, but I like to advocate in different ways. I mean, I do a lot of online stuff. I mean, on my personal page, I'm always talking about animals and, adopt, don't shop. And I'm just a very firm believer of that. So I feel like fostering has just been a great thing for the animals. And it's great to be able to give them a home and a place to be comfortable and gain that confidence back in humans and be able to, restore their faith. And I feel like finding them a home is like one of the best feelings in the world to be able to give them that,
Yeah. So why do you think you are so passionate about animals? When do you think that started?
I feel like I've always been connected to animals in a way. I've always had animals, and just growing up, there was always animals around me. And I just always felt drawn to their innocence and just the fact that they could do no wrong. I mean, they really don't, there's nothing you can really, I feel like they're not born to be, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. I feel like they're just such innocent creatures, and they don't really have any way to defend themselves. And I feel like as humans, we do. And we can help people and animals that are defenseless, and, show them if they've had a bad past or, they don't really know anything but us. And so I feel like if we can give them that life, I feel like that's their purpose, is they just give so much love back too, and they could do no harm. So I feel like that always attracted me. I'm such a sensitive person, and I just always want to give. So for me, I'm just like, these animals give me so much, and I just want to show them that they're really special,
Mm-hmm. So. See, this is something I think Harley could benefit from, because at the moment there are a lot of people that still synonymize or see harley-davidson riders as these sort of tough criminal enterprise, groups. Totally. And then meanwhile, you've got someone like you who is the complete opposite. You're very caring and sensitive and vegan, the opposite of so many preconceived notions about Harley riders. And I wish that they would capitalize more on that, because I do like Harley more than some other companies, primarily because I feel like the owners actually love riding. Mm-hmm. Whereas some companies like BMW or Honda or Yamaha, the motorcycle business is just one more business segment in a giant conglomeration of business segments, and same thing with like Suzuki and all the different brands. Really, Harley, in my mind, is sort of the last brand left that has ownership that is connected with riding in a personal way.
For sure.
So I do wish them success. I think this new CEO is going to help them a lot. But they have their issues, they do have their issues.
Yeah. I've seen certain things that they're like starting to come around on certain things, and I appreciate that. And I know that people that I know that ride Harleys are, commenting things too. So I feel like I hope that there's someone out there listening and reading and listening to the actual riders, because it's like, it's a different world, it's not the same as, the old biker life, I guess. And definitely a lot of change that needs to happen. I think it starts from, big brands like that, for sure.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned that your aesthetic is the kind of horror vibe, and you partner up with tattoo artists. Did you originally have a tattoo artist in mind whose artwork you thought would be a great fit, or did you have an idea in mind for your aesthetic and then run across a tattoo artist and you go, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for my line?
It was a combination of both. Honestly, I felt like there was just kind of like a natural flow that went with it. I mean, I did have an idea in mind, and the first 2 shirts that I had created, were musical references, and also just the She Wolf, the name itself. And I feel like the support your local is a very old school biker thing. So with those first 2 designs, it was something that was just in my head, and I could do Photoshop. I knew how to do that. So that was a simple task. But as far as like an actual logo goes, I had the exact girl in mind, and she's actually a friend of mine that's tattooed me several times. So I felt like, she knew exactly, like when I had told her, it was just like, oh yeah, perfect. And she does these really great, like girl head portraits. And I just knew I wanted something. That's actually, if you see behind me, that's like, it's probably a little too far back, but that's her design. Stacy from Port City, Costa Mesa. And she nailed it. Like, I didn't even need to give her a direction. I was just like, yeah, something that represents She Wolf and, motorcycles and wolves and whatever, so she just nailed it completely. So, so a lot of it was just kind of like, it kind of just flowed with that. And I had actually been given a gift from another tattoo artist, and he's pretty known in the motorcycle community. His name's Howlin Wolf, but his real name's Carlos. And he drew something for me, and he just gifted it to me. And I was just like super stoked on the gift. And he was just like, you've been following me since the very beginning, and I just appreciate your support. So here's this for you, and you can use it for whatever. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And I've always been a true fan of his art. And I guess I had been following him for so long. We had like a good connection online, and ended up doing his wife's hair for him. So I feel like that's how the motorcycle community works. I mean, it's very collaborative. It's very supportive of each other's art. And I feel like that's also how motorcycles saved my life, to be honest. I just feel like there's a lot of that communication, just connections that means so much to me from this day forward. I mean, I feel like I can definitely say that I've gotten closer to a lot of people that I truly respect, and I'm grateful for that.
So do you think that you would still ride as much as you do now if there wasn't the community aspect that you've come across? Or do you think that the deeper your ties go with the community, the more passion you have for motorcycles?
I could see it both ways. I mean, I feel like I don't ride as much as others. And I follow a lot of people that ride almost on the daily. And sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, today's a good day for a ride, and I'll get up and go. But I have friends that are just like, I'm going to ride every day. Every day that I ride is a good day. So I feel like my mindset's a little more of like definitely involved in the community. And like I've said before, I'm shy, but when I get to know people, I mean, I can really open up and really connect, because I'm just that kind of person that I guess kind of needs that. So I definitely feel like knowing and having a sense of community has drawn me closer to motorcycles. But I still, like I said before, it's something about like being on an actual bike and taking off is just like, it reminds me like, this is why I love this so much. Like, it's not just the people, because when you ride, you're alone, you're in your own mind, and you kind of just go for it, and you enjoy the time on the bike. So
I don't think I asked you this, but why did you start riding for the first time?
It was something that I had always been like, my dad rode motorcycles, and he still kind of rides, but I ride a bit more than him now. But he had ridden, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, if you ride a Harley, you're cool. And then I actually didn't really get into like the idea of riding until I was passenger for, on my boyfriend's bike, and we would just kind of do like little day trips, you know, up the coast. And there was something to like, I felt great being on the bike, but I also didn't have a sense like I wanted to be the one controlling, because I would just sit there like, I wonder what it feels like to actually be the one like riding this thing. And I kind of just brought up the idea to my boyfriend. I was like, hey, like, I'm kind of interested in riding. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, let's find you a bike. So that's kind of how it started. It was really just getting the experience and the feel of being on the back of a bike, and just having that like smelling things you've never smelled, you know, like driving in a car, or seeing things that I never really noticed. And you're just put out there, you know, it's a cool feeling.
All right. So you were riding on the back, you decided you wanted to give it a try, actually riding one yourself. Mm-hmm. What factored into your decision to go with that 1982 Honda CB125? Because that's a 125cc bike, right?
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, it was actually, I had told a friend of mine that had ridden, and she was like, oh, you got to look at small bikes. You have to, you know, find what works for you. And I was kind of under a certain budget, and she had actually found the bike for me. And it was like a Craigslist ad, and I just contacted them to see if the bike was around. And they're from Nevada. So like, you know, they agreed to meet up with us, and it wasn't like a for sure thing, like I was going to get the bike. But I honestly, it was a perfect deal. It was a great size. I just don't think that I could have found anything on both terms. And I was just kind of freaked out by the weight aspect of it. I mean, just because I was brand new, I just like had only been on my boyfriend's bike, and at the time he rode a Sportster, and I thought that thing was huge. I was just like, that is a big machine. Like, I don't know if I can ever handle this. So yeah, I mean, there was just a big like size comparison. I was definitely intimidated at first, but little by little, like I just got used to the handling, and yeah, I guess that's kind of how I started on that bike. But I fell in love with it, and I wish I wouldn't have sold it, but fortunately had to get a new bike. So
yeah. Well, did you specifically seek out a Honda, or were you just looking in a specific price range? Which was more of a concern for you?
It was more of like the style. At first I was like, I know the type of bike I would like to ride. And I had this like, I'm going to be like a cafe racer, you know, CB style, you know, that's the kind of ride I want to be eventually. Maybe when it froze again. Sorry.
That's all right. Luckily your audio was coming through. So.
Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, I was just like, I wanted to be kind of like, you know, into that stuff. That's what I thought like I was going to be into. And so that's how I found the Honda, because I just, in my head, I was like, I want that, you know, and I thought I was going to have that bike for a little longer, but it wasn't freeway legal, and I was ready to get on the freeway. So
yeah. I mean, I guess it's probably hard to get around too much without a freeway.
For sure.
Okay. So then you got your Honda 125. Now, when you moved up to the Shadow, again, were you thinking sticking with Honda because you had a good experience, or was it a matter of you were looking for bikes, that was the one in your price range that you thought looked the best?
I fell in love with Hondas. Like, I mean, that 125 was my first experience of my very first bike. So it was just like, wow, Hondas are great. And I remember just like searching everything Honda and trying to kind of just like, you know, match my bike with cute patches and things that, you know, I just felt like a true Honda rider. And like, I really was into vintage motorcycles, and I loved everything about that. So I kind of think it just went from there. So it was just like, you know, and I tell somebody like I ride a Honda, like, oh, so awesome, so reliable, great bikes, easy to fix, blah, blah, blah. So I felt like that was definitely like, oh, I'm in a good position. Like, you know, I could eventually work on my own bike and I'll be great. I'll be set for life. Because I also heard the whole Harley, like, oh, you know, not reliable, can break down, whatever. So when I got the Shadow, I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, Honda is my thing. So I kind of just stuck with the Honda thing. And yeah, it was mostly didn't really get I got the opportunity to ride the Harley, and that's kind of what changed my world, my entire world.
So what do you think, was the difference between riding the Hondas versus riding the Harley that really struck you?
The power.
Yeah.
So much difference of the power. And I don't know if it was a jump from a 700 to, you know, an 883. I don't really know if that really was it, but there was this like rumbling, like purring sound that the Harley gave, and the feel was like a little smoother. And I don't know, like I jumped on that bike and I was really intimidated by the weight factor, but I just took off and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've been missing. And I took it up and down the street, and I just couldn't believe that that's what I was maybe supposed to be. Like I felt that difference immediately. Like, and I came back like, I want to take this bike home. Yeah, it was a really good feeling. And I still remember that day, like I couldn't stop thinking about the bike. Like, I need this bike. So
how much influence did the sound have on you when you were riding it and your decision making? Because some people hate a loud bike and some people love it. Now, guessing by the fact you took out baffles, you like a loud bike, but was that part of the decision making process when you heard it?
For sure. I felt like it just, like the power in general, just feeling the sound, hearing the sound. I mean, it rumbled perfectly. Like there was just definitely, that is like what attracted me to it. Just sitting on the bike, feeling it, you know, riding it down the street. There was just, everything was so different than what I was riding originally. And I feel like that's what changed it forever for me. And yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I started off on a 125cc Skylar. I've tried to Google Skylars before and I can't find them, but I have a video of myself riding it. But when I was in Nicaragua visiting my friend, he had this little 125 Skylar, and he taught me how to ride on that. And then so when I got back to the US, I went and took my MSF course, and I learned on a Honda, I think it was a Honda Rebel. Nice. Honda Rebel, Honda Shadow, one of the two. And I had so much fun on that little 125cc. It got me hooked on motorcycles forever. And the Honda in the MSF course, I thought was a lot of fun to ride too. But I will say, when my Harley was delivered to the house, because I've got an Iron 883.
Nice.
And I started that thing up and took my first ride on it. I was just so in love. You know, I was so in love.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe,
right?
You know, because I mean, I'm not really a power person. Like, I don't really care much about speed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the sound and the way it felt to ride, like even the vibrations. I even liked the vibrations. Like, I felt like I was on a machine, like a very analog thing.
Yeah,
you know, and loved it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all right. That's all right.
I'm excited. It was really weird because I felt, this like might be weird to say, but I felt like I was a real writer. Like, I just felt so like official, not because it's Harley, but just because of the feel. Like, every single thing that I could experience that moment, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is what people talk about when they talk about that feeling of riding. Like, I'm feeling it now. Yeah.
So when you learned to ride, did your boyfriend teach you? Did you take a basic rider course? How did that come about?
When I got the 125, I'd actually gotten that before I took the safety course, because I'm like, it takes me a while. I'm a very visual learner, so I feel like I had to get the feel and the basics down before I actually took the course. I'm a very bad like written test kind of person. Like, I just, my mind goes everywhere and it's hard for me to concentrate. So I wanted to get the other stuff down and be able to practice and just take the time to study on what I need to. So I felt like I definitely had to go that direction. So I bought the bike. He kind of, I had bought the bike. He put out like Koontz for me, and he kind of just did all the safety course tests just so that I can get comfortable on the maneuvering and everything. Not too much later than that, I felt like 100 times better, because there's people that obviously didn't make it, didn't show up the next day, or people that had fallen, and or didn't even know how to start the bike. And I just didn't want to have that like fear built up before I even got on the bike. So I felt like I definitely benefited from buying the bike, taking the course, and, going from there.
Okay. So do you have any plans on taking more courses, or have you taken any other courses since then?
I haven't. I wanted to take like the advanced course. I know that some companies offer that, and I think that would be very beneficial, especially riding in California where traffic can be out of control because we can lane split. There's just a lot more going on out here, I feel. So I definitely feel I could benefit from that. And I would love to learn how to dirt bike. I know that's off topic, but I've never learned that. And I've heard there's things in your biking like that you can learn to help with certain things too on the road. So
yeah, I've heard that everyone who rides on the street should learn to ride a dirt bike, because you start to learn how to deal with loss of traction, a little bit more of a safe environment than the freeway.
For sure. For sure.
I definitely have plans to try to learn to ride in the dirt as well, because I've never ridden a dirt bike. But I think it looks like a lot of fun. The hang up I have is kind of twofold right now. One is I just bought one bike, so I don't want to go buy a dirt bike now after that. And the second thing is I hear that a lot of dirt bikes, the maintenance intervals are measured in hours versus miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
it's like, you got like, I don't know how many hours before you have to do an oil change. And it's like, that's a lot of oil changes.
Out for all day have to get an oil change for sure. I know that there's some courses that like you can actually learn on their bikes and then eventually decide if you want to invest in a bike and be out there. So
yeah, I just know myself. And I think it looks like a lot of fun, and I can't imagine that it's going to be less fun doing it than thinking about it. So
for sure. I totally get that.
I think you mentioned that your boyfriend's in a band. How have things been going for him now that there's not really, you can't really tour unless it's outdoor, right?
No, it's actually kind of funny because the day that he got kind of canceled was he was about to leave for tour the day of, and he got the call as half of his band, they're not from the state, so they flew in here and they're doing like a California tour, and they're on their way to come get him, and they had just told him like, hey, we don't know, there's stuff going on, we'll get back to you. And within half an hour, he had gotten the word that one of the shows had gotten canceled, and stay tuned. And within an hour of each other, it was just like, oh, now this show's canceled, now this show's canceled. Oh, the whole tour is canceled. So it was a really busy time for his band because it's kind of like an Irish-based punk rock band. So it was in March. So their biggest shows were, towards St. Patrick's Day and everything. Yeah. Unfortunately, he was affected by that greatly. And so was his, road crew and management, and just a lot of people were affected by it. And it definitely hit a little hard because it was like the artists, the musicians, the hairstylists. I mean, we were both affected by it. And for a while we were like home, like, what are we doing? What is this? What's going to happen? We just had a lot of unknown, unanswered questions. So I felt like there was a really weird time in the beginning. And eventually, there was a support that came around, and it's been a little hard. He has a full-time job besides it. So he's able to like go work. And then when he tours, he tells them like, hey, I'm going to be off these days. So they're very lenient with like his schedule, and they understand. So yeah, unfortunately it hit him and his band, and they were greatly affected, but, so were a lot of our other friends that are also in bands or, on the road traveling with bands and things like that. So it definitely took a hit. The music industry it's been very, very sad, but I can say that all the, online acoustic sets and, at home quarantine music videos made have definitely made my day. And it's great that we can actually support them in other ways, like contributing to their funds or being able to purchase any merchandise to help the crew and things like that. So.
Okay. So do you guys live together?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So how's the relationship been? Because I know some folks quarantine put a lot of strain because there's just like that constant togetherness, which some people love and some people are more independent. So how's that been affecting you guys?
It's actually been not too bad because there was a few weeks, I would say like a full month that I was home. And we were both home together, and that was a little weird because it was almost like I've learned to be really independent. I've always been an independent person, but like in relationships, it's like we were always, in past relationships, you're always together. So you have that like, reliable, like, I don't know, you're just always reliant on the individual, but I've become independent with this relationship because it's like, he would travel all the time and we long distance, when he lived in Texas. So that kind of like was a completely different experience for me. And I've learned to be super independent through this relationship. And I love it. I love my time. I love having things to, do for myself, and seeing my friends and family when I can on, just having alone time with them is really special. So it definitely was a little weird for about a month. And then we kind of like, he was able to go back to work because his business or where he worked was deemed essential. So he was able to go back and do that. And I was still kind of home for a little bit, and then I was able to go back to work, and then we had to close down again. So it wasn't too bad. It didn't affect us too much. And we kind of do our own thing when we're here anyways. So it helps a lot too.
Oh, that's good to hear. I mean, it's a sort of similar situation with my girlfriend and I. We live together and we're both working from home now. And it really hasn't done much, really. Both of us are somewhat independent, and we kind of do our own thing. And I was really happy that we didn't want to kill each other after the first 30 days. You know what I mean? Because you never know.
Yeah, you don't. And yeah, because any kind of like home dynamic can change like that. You're not prepared for it. And if things have been great the way they were, it's like, how do you know it's going to be fine when you're home? Or I can't imagine people with children that have to do it and both work from home, or, if one has to work elsewhere and one's not used to working from home. I mean, I know that changes a lot, and I know that it's hard in that case too. So I have certain clients that have dealt with that too, and I just can't imagine for sure.
And there's just so much stress with the world right now, especially if you don't know what's going to happen with your job or your band or whatever, there's the whole idea of the unknown is so scary for people that it can really raise stress levels. And as you know, some people handle stress differently and they end up fighting, and some people are able to manage it better. So
for sure,
it's good to know. I think this is like a good trial run for couples. It's like, if you can't stand 30 days together, maybe don't put any kind of marriage plans in the future. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to stand 30 days with your significant other.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely one of those. I'm glad we've made it through so far.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you did mention that your family rides, but primarily the men until you found out about the aunt, I believe, or the two aunts, right? So what did your parents think about you riding your own motorcycle?
My mom is very like worrisome. She just freaks out about anything. So I feel like for her, she's just like, you're going to go on a ride? What? Like, I don't understand why. And she's definitely one of the ones that is very concerned, but I think she's gotten used to it and definitely understands that, hey, I'm being careful. I'm not riding like a jerk. Like, I'm very cautious, and I know that it's not just what I have control of, but she understands that, like, I take it pretty seriously, and it's something that I love doing. So she's always just like, okay, let me know if I check in with her, like, just text me when you get somewhere, if I'm going on like a long trip or anything like that. So she just likes to kind of stay in touch. So she gets it. And my dad I feel like he's more of like I don't know. My dad's always been the type like, girls can't do that. And always just been like, watch me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it better than you, Dad. Just watch. So I'm very like, we kind of clash in that sense. But quick side note, my dad does professional wrestling and he owns a company. And all my life I've wanted to wrestle. And I was never allowed to because I was a girl. And it's just really weird how that has changed. And I've always told myself, like, once I get the chance to do something that I want to do, I'm never going to not do it. And my dad's a good guy, but I feel like his way of upbringing and just things that he, was told that wasn't right growing up, I feel like things have changed. So I kind of just tell him like, hey, it's a different world. Like I'm doing my thing. So I think he gets it now and he understands.
Okay. So does he actively tell you not to ride, or did he just say he didn't think you could?
I think it was, he didn't think I could, but yeah, he doesn't really like comment on me riding. Like I'll tell him I'm going on a ride or I did this and he's like, oh, cool. So I don't think he really, it really affects him.
Have you guys ever ridden together?
No. And that's something I would really like to do. But he makes up excuses about his bike and, I don't know. I think that there's a fear in him and I haven't brought it up to him because I feel like he doesn't like to talk about it, but I feel like something happened and he's like freaked out or something because every time I'm like, get your bike, let's go out, let's do something. He's like, oh yeah, I need this. And I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want to ride, let's save it for another time. But I would love to ride with him. I think that would be really cool. And I think that would be a good thing for our relationship. Definitely.
Okay. What does he ride?
He has a Harley and I think it's a Fat Boy from what I remember him saying. I haven't seen it. That's how much he wants to ride. He hasn't even shown me pictures. So I think he has a Fat Boy, but I'm not exactly sure. And I don't know the year because I haven't seen it either. I wouldn't know either way. But all I know is that it's red. And I hope that he one day gets on his bike and can go somewhere. That'd be really cool.
Did you say he lived in Texas or does he live in California? Or?
He lives in California. Yeah.
Lives in California. Okay. So you guys could ride.
Yeah, we totally could. I think he's
okay.
I don't know. I think he's kind of scared. I think something happened and he won't tell me because he doesn't want to. So I'm just like, come on, Dad, let's do it. Let's go somewhere. You can borrow Pete's bike. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I'll leave that for later, bring it up another time.
So do you have any siblings?
I do. I have two older brothers. We're pretty far apart. I mean, I'm 8 years from the oldest and 4 from the middle child, and I'm the baby. So. Okay.
Do they ride?
They don't ride.
They don't ride?
No, they don't. They wrestle, but they don't ride. Okay. Yeah, they don't even know where I got it from. I mean, I would say my dad, but I also don't, because my boyfriend rides more than my dad did. So I feel like I probably got inspired from him for sure, but yeah, they don't ride.
So have you ever considered joining jiu-jitsu or something and then choking your dad the next time you saw him?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, I can totally show him up and, show him something and he'll just be like totally in shock. No, I haven't, but when I was in high school, I did cheer and I do, the tumbling and everything. And I always just wanted to like show him up in the ring and be like, look, I can do this really cool tumbling move and like drop kick somebody or, I don't know, like incorporate that into this and, just like totally show him. But I never did that. So.
Okay. Well, it's never too late to do jiu-jitsu. So
true.
I mean, now it's too late because nothing's open, but
right. Totally.
Are your brothers in California too?
Yeah, they're here.
Oh yeah, because they wrestle. Do they wrestle with your dad's company?
Yeah, they haven't really been active for. I think it's been about a year that they've been inactive. They do a lot of like touring shows. The last shows that they did, I think, was like there was an event out here, the Sabroso Fest, and it was like a music and food festival, and they were asked to come and do some event within the festival. So I think that's like the last like big event they had done, but it's mostly like lucha libre style, like Mexican style wrestling with like Americanized / like Japanese style wrestling. So it's got a whole twist of things. So it's pretty cool, but I've been around it my entire life. So so they're not doing too many shows obviously now, but.
So does he have another job aside from that, or is that his primary income?
He does auto upholstery. So he does a lot of like custom seat building or just any kind of like upholstery if someone needs like, furniture done. So he does that. He sews. That's the funny thing. He sews, and he's one of the people that I actually, he makes costumes for like the wrestlers too. And I've actually reached out to him about glove making. He was just like, yeah, that's impossible. I'm just like, you make gloves too, but he works with very fine materials. So definitely like not the category that like I'm looking for, but yeah, he's one of them.
All right. So you have an in, if you ever want a custom seat for the Sportster, then.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. I'm like, I got to get him to do it for sure.
Have you ever thought about putting one of your designs on a seat or something and having him do that for you?
I think about it all the time, and I'm just like, I want to bug him, but then I feel like, I don't know, I definitely want to do something like that, but I had to invest in a really good seat first. I feel like when anything that comes to motorcycles, like I put my motorcycle last because I put She Wolf first, and I don't know, that's just how it is with me right now. So
yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. She Wolf is is a passion of yours along with motorcycles. And I mean, motorcycles, having a new seat is obviously cool, but just having a bike in general is already cool.
Heck yeah, for sure.
So what, do you have any new items getting ready to launch for She Wolf, or?
I do. I have something pretty small. I have some patches coming in. We have this logo that we used to carry. It was a t-shirt logo, and it says "Ghouls to the front." And I'm making them into patches. So that's our next small launch. We just came out with those Unity t-shirts. I don't know if you'd seen them, but that was for 100% of the proceeds to be donated. But we don't really have anything super new in the works. There's a few things that I have in mind. It's just really hard because I don't design things myself. I just have these ideas and I tell somebody, and I have to kind of rely on that being done. But there are a few things that are in the process of being in the works, but not necessarily locked down yet. So hopefully those come soon. And I'm pretty excited for those. I want them to happen, but just everything's just kind of been on a halt due to the pandemic.
So, were you making a lot of your sales through, the motorcycle events where you guys would show up and set up a booth and do that thing, or were you mostly online anyway?
Both. I think there's that. There was a really good time where we were pretty busy online, and we were staying steady, and I think it also has to do with being active online. So it's all what I put out there. And I noticed that a lot of my, crowd, a lot of attention we get is after I post something. So definitely get, I get action there, but a lot of it is from doing the booth stuff. We've been able to do the SoCal Cycle Swap every month for the past few months. And then before the pandemic, we had done that for a few months. And that was a very successful event for us. I feel like that really helps boost, the support. And it also introduces new people to the line where they see it and they're like, I didn't know this existed. Where are you from? And, you get a lot of in-person, transactions. So I feel like that kind of helps the company a lot. And I noticed a lot more attention after that as well online. So good.
And did you guys attend any of the vegan festivals, or was it primarily motorcycle events?
No, I'm it's really weird because I'm kind of scared to dip into that, or it's a completely new category. And I wanted to eventually get into horror conventions and festivals, and also dip into the vegan part of it. But I haven't really mastered my approach for that yet. I feel like I kind of wanted to come out with some kind of reliable gear first to be able to be well, we are a vegan company because of this. Not only do we donate to animals and we stand up for animal rights and, things like that, but we also do this. So I feel with motorcycles, because the main focus is motorcycles, I feel that's just kind of been my comfort. But I would definitely like to reach out to more communities and kind of attract other people that way. Cause I know people that don't ride that support and my stuff, the line, but, they don't know if they can wear it because they don't know, they're I don't ride, I want to support you. And I'm you don't have to ride to support. It's kind of just, it has anybody could support. So haven't dipped into that yet, but I'd like to.
Cause personally, I think that your designs, are just cool on their own. Like you said, you don't have to ride motorcycles to wear the brand. And I mean, you're a vegan, so I don't have to explain it to you, but vegans like to support vegans, right?
Sure.
And so if you combine cool designs, which you have, with people who are looking actively for other vegan companies to support, I think it'd be a good fit personally, but obviously you're more entrenched in the, community than I am.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's hard too, because it's like, we don't have, like, we are a vegan company, but a lot of our stuff don't say vegan on it. And I know a lot of vegan people want to see vegan stuff saying vegan stuff. So I feel like that's kind of like something that like I could probably gear like a different type of line when I reach out to the vegan aspect, just because a lot of my logos or designs don't necessarily say, hey, I'm vegan. So that's another thing. And, I don't know if that's like what people would be interested in, but, I thank you for the compliment on the designs. I think that's, that's what attracts like people in the motorcycle community. I just don't know with the vegans, if they're like, oh yeah, but how do you know this is supported? I don't know. There's just a lot of things I have to, I guess, try and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Like I said, I was part of a few forums and I could see people getting ripped apart, because even vegans can't always agree on what's vegan or not,
Sure.
And I don't know. I'm sure that not all vegan groups are like this, but for me, one of the reasons that it was hard to stay vegan, number one was my body wasn't agreeing with it. It was just like wrecking me. But number two, the constant fighting in these groups that are supposed to be filled with like caring and sensitive people was really getting to me, because,
Right.
I'm like you in that I care a lot about the animals and I care a lot about people and trying to be nice to each other and all that kind of stuff. And when you're in this group that's supposed to espouse similar ideas and all you're seeing is fighting, it becomes kind of a more stressful thing than a beneficial thing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. So. And that's kind of something I'm not necessarily prepared for, because I'm so in tune with the support that I get from the motorcycle community that dipping into like, the vegan part of it, that's a little more like political. Like people get really into the vegan part of it. And yeah, I'm vegan and yeah, we're a vegan company, but there's going to be people that are going to break me down to the core of the thread of the t-shirt. And like, yeah, I'm 100% cotton, pretty sure. But it's like, how could you, it's just like little things like that where I'm just like, you can't control everything. And it's, you help where you can. And that's how I see veganism. Like every day is a start with, how you said that your girlfriend had fallen back on things. And that's okay, because your next meal can be vegan. Like that's the thing that you like is kind of a constant reminder to me. Like if you to go out and eat at a restaurant and you somebody actually serves you, a restaurant that has both vegan options and regular options, and they accidentally serve you something that's not vegan. Like you bite into that. Oh no, does that make you like not vegan anymore? Like those are things that like go on in my mind as far as like how veganism can be, where there are a lot of bullies there, in the community. And I have a hard time with that, because I'm just like, I'm just doing my thing. Like I believe in all this and yeah, I am vegan, but you don't, you can't put everything on it. You can't just say, you're not being fair because of this. It's like, you have every moment to start over, you try again the next day or the next, whatever it is. So I feel like it's what you make out of it. I don't necessarily think you have to be so much into, the actual, vegan movement. I think it's mostly about just focusing on what you can do for veganism and for animal rights. So I think that's what it's about. And, I'm never the type to give anyone crap because they're not vegan or my boyfriend's not vegan at all. He eats meat. So it's like, I don't tell him what to eat, so it's just, those are little things that I think is hard for me to transition into like the vegan aspect of that part, is being able to like, I guess being like, dealing with those questions or being bullied because I possibly wear, vegan or leather gloves when I ride. So. Yeah.
Well, I think that sometimes it's a matter of just losing the forest for the trees because they get so ingrained. And this isn't just vegans. This is anything where people get really passionate about a subject. Sometimes they get so focused on the details that the bigger picture gets lost. And what I mean by that is, there's studies that show even going 1 day a week without meat can make a big impact on the environment. So instead of celebrating the fact that people are, going multiple days without eating animal products, they're focused on the mistakes that might get made. And for me, it's, it's of course, it's important that everyone is kind of educated in the things that they're trying to do. At the same time, there's got to be some reality that no one's perfect, and expecting perfection is unreasonable. Whether it's, that's the same thing with gear, right? Like, I think that people who don't wear a helmet, or don't wear a full face helmet, I think that that's kind of crazy, but at the same time, they're their own person. They got to make their own decisions. And, like, even if they're just wearing a skull cap, that's still better than wearing nothing. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think everything in moderation, and with it, being mindful and being educated. Like, I think those are all things and key factors to being open to new ideas, and realizing that it's not just about, whatever it is, it's not just about the belief system. It's about, like, it could be environmentally, sustainable, or it could be just good for your health. It's so many factors that play into it. And I think people need to be open to that, and in every subject, in every aspect. So just, everything.
Yeah. I like the whole rule where it's like, just be kind to each other.
Totally.
As much as possible. Just be nice.
My thing is, like, don't be a dick. Like, just don't be a dick. It's perfect.
That's right.
There's no need to be a jerk about anything. It's just, nothing is that serious to be so set on.
Yeah, life is way too short, and we all have our own struggles, and there's no real reason to make anyone's life more difficult.
Entirely. I think we could all be guilty of that sometimes, because we play into our own head a lot, and we kind of take that and use it as like a defense mechanism sometimes. And I think it's just, you don't know anyone else's struggles, and you don't know what we're all going through. So I feel like it's just super great to be mindful of that, and be open to new things. Yeah.
So I know, to switch gears real quick, because I know we've been getting kind of deep into the vegan side of things,
sure.
But I think I'd even sent you this question before, but if there were, what do you think were the 5 most difficult things about like finding women's riding gear, or just about women's riding gear in general, whether it's the fit, the, availability, the sizing, like, what do you think, what were the 5 hardest parts?
I would have to go with, like, style for sure, because I like to feel, I think it's like that mindset of look good, feel good kind of thing. So definitely style, definitely fit, the feel. There's certain textures and things that I'm uncomfortable with. And when I'm riding, I want to be at my most comfortable. So it's hard to find certain things that you just don't feel right, or, the arms are too short and you can't reach the handlebars, or, or something's way too hot. And you can't feel comfortable, I guess, in different weathering types. And I just feel like there's a lot that goes into it. So definitely style, fit, comfort. I would say, like, all of the above for sure when it comes down to that. Because I know that if I had a jacket that was more comfortable and fit well and looked good, I would much rather be wearing that than something that I knew sometimes. Even though I'm all about the gear, I just feel like if I didn't have gear that didn't fit me correctly, or didn't look right, or didn't feel right, I wouldn't be about it. But I'm fortunate to have found gear that I'm comfortable with wearing. I feel like it's hard. It's few and far between, like, to find that, but there are a lot of women brands out there now that do support that. And I'm grateful for that too, because I feel like if it weren't for them, I would be at a loss, and I'd probably still be wearing leather jackets. So. Yeah.
Okay. So if you had to pick 2 or 3 things about your current Harley that are your absolute favorite things about it, what would you say they were?
I would have to say, I guess I could say that I appreciate that a lot of my parts are hand-me-downs from a friend of mine. So I really appreciate that the motorcycle community is able to help out where it needs to. And when I was modifying my bike to my liking, I felt like there were certain parts I needed and I had friends that had it. So I like that a lot of my parts come from somebody that, basically contribute to that. So I really like that. And I would also have to say the work that I put into, like, just anything. I like that I can actually work on my bike and feel connected to it that way. So those would be my two favorite parts about it.
I read that you went to Babes Ride Out and you had a fantastic time. Tell me about that experience.
That was amazing. I mean, I've been to two since, and I feel like from the ride there to the connections that you get when you're there, there's just like a sense of empowerment that like totally takes over you. And you just like, when you're there, you feel like you could just cry because you're so like stoked to be there. And the fact that all these women are there for the same thing and you're all just as passionate about it. And when you explain, motorcycles to people that don't ride, being at Babes is like what it feels like. You get there, make it, you're like, it's exactly what I've been feeling the whole time. And all these women know exactly how that feels. And we can all agree on one thing. And it's specifically, and it's definitely the feeling that you get with motorcycles. And it was great. I mean, just the connections that you get closer to the people that, if you do ride in a group, you get closer and you meet a ton of new people there too. And they just have a lot to offer to the community. And I feel like it's exactly what we've needed, that like support that you don't get anywhere else.
So how did you hear about Babes Ride Out, and why did you decide that it's something that you wanted to do?
I heard about Babes actually, I'm trying to think of where I originally heard about Babes. I think I knew about Babes before I started to ride, but I had been following some women riders. So when I had seen their posts, I saw that they had gone to Babes, and the girls that I had followed had been at the first Babes and, from there on. So seeing their photos and like kind of trying to like live vicariously through them, like that was just like, oh my gosh, like I was kind of craving, that whole experience on my own. And then when I started to ride, I felt like that was like what you look forward to. I think I started to ride in, trying to think of the month, but I think it was the summer, and I had a few months for Babes, and I just wanted to like really be prepared and ready to go. And I think I actually missed out on the first year of riding for Babes because I had my shadow at the time, and I just didn't feel confident enough, and I just didn't want to go with the shadow. And there's just a lot of, I wasn't ready for it. And then the year after, I was just like more than excited because I had met friends and I had, known a few people, and then we kind of got a little group together and we rode together. And I think that whole experience was just something that you like only dream about.
Okay. So that's how you heard about it. Now, living vicariously through the folks on, I'm assuming Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, Instagram.
Okay.
Sure. And then also following like That Wild line where they would talk about Babes. And then also there was a women's motorcycle podcast. I don't know if you're aware of them,
No.
But they had interviewed, it's called Girl in a Moto. And they had actually interviewed the two women, Anya and Ashmore, that had put Babes Ride Out together. So I heard their episode, and I think that was actually after I had gone to Babes, but just basically online stuff that I would follow and just like be really stoked on.
Okay. So you heard about it through there, and it was on your radar, but why did you decide that like a group ride or a group camping trip would be something that you wanted to do? Was it were you still at that time trying to meet more women who rode bikes, or did you just see the community online and like it so much that you just thought you couldn't see not being a part of it?
I think it was just like being inspired by the other women and seeing how much fun they had. And there was just such like an uplift from, seeing these videos and these, hearing about these awesome experiences and talking to women that had gone and just telling me that it's the best time of their lives. And I just wanted to feel it. I wanted to experience that full force. And I think that's what made me look forward to it a lot more. Just hearing all these stories and things that happened at Babes and how epic it was, and seeing people post about it and write about it. Like, honestly, a lot of people wrote about what Babes was to them. And a lot of the women that I had met through like the Litas groups rode to Babes the year before I rode, and they're like the best of friends. And they all got connected and got close because of Babes. So I think the camping aspect of it really gets you, to be closer to people, and you kind of just experience motorcycles in a different way too from that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know that some people hate camping, some people don't like group rides, and yet they'll still go.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, some people ride separately. Like I've had friends that show up on their own, they just meet us there that night. And there's people that rent, Airbnbs, or they get hotel rooms, and they'll come and hang out at Babes all day, and then they'll head home to their rooms. And I think that's kind of cool. I'm actually like possibly trying to do that next year. Only because I love the whole aspect, like the whole idea of camping. I think that whole, making your own food in the morning on the, on the grill, whatever it may be. I like waking up early to the sun, and, all that stuff is great. But, I was freezing. I was so cold, and you can only pack so much on your bike, and not everyone has the luxury of having a friend have a huge truck loading extra blankets and things that you need. So when you do motorcycle camping, you have to be very prepared for it. And I can tell you that both years, I thought I was more prepared the second year than the first, and it was just the same. And we actually had like a tent that was big enough for 6 girls, and I thought, body warmth, we'll stay warm, just like, being super close to each other. And you need like a mat to go under your sleeping bag. And then you have to like sleep with clothes that you didn't wear that day because you're holding on to the moisture. So I had all these like little tips and tricks to like keep myself warm. I was still so cold, and so was everybody else. And I don't know if I can handle that. I know some people don't care and deal with it, but I couldn't sleep. And that actually happened to me the year before. I couldn't sleep the night. The first night I was so cold that I didn't sleep at all. And the next day we rode to the resort, or the camp out was in Joshua Tree, and we rode to Pappy and Harriet's. It's like a local bar and hangout. And I was like dangerously like kind of swerving and kind of like falling asleep on my bike because I was just so beat, and I didn't realize it that I had to head back to the campsite and take a nap because I was just like so out of it, and I couldn't believe that it had affected me that much, and I was super bummed about it. But it didn't make or break my experience. It was just more of like I need to get better sleep. So definitely prepared me enough a little bit for the next year, but still really freaking cold.
So was Babes your first time camping?
No, it's been a long time. I mean, the last time I camped, I had enough blankets, and, it was just a different experience. I think it's my first time motorcycle camping. So yeah, there was a lot of that. And like people tell you it's really cold, it's this, and you're like, oh, I'm good, I'll deal with it when I get there. And I just thought I would be fine. And no, it wasn't that was probably the only downside of it, but that's what camping is. So I know that it's just like having to deal with it and then wanting to ride the next day. You better be prepared. So.
Well, I only ask because I like to camp too, but I've learned slowly over the years, through mistakes about camping. And so you're talking about a 6-person tent. One of the things that, I've learned through camping over the years is that you really want a tent that is the smallest possible to accommodate the number of people you're going to have, because that keeps the heat in.
Yeah.
And that I used to think that sleeping bag ratings were what they were rated for, as in for comfort, but it's actually just what you won't die at. So
like level, yeah.
So if you have, a sleeping bag rated for 40 degrees, then when I bought my first sleeping bag, I thought that meant if you were going to be camping in 40-degree weather, you'd be warm. But that's not the case. It just means you won't die at 40 degrees. But if you want to be comfortable, you want like a 20-degree sleeping bag if you're going to be sleeping in 40-degree weather,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's hard. That's a hard way to learn too, when you're there and you have your sleeping bag. That's all you have. Like,
oh yeah.
Cool, for sure. For sure.
Yep. And the thing is, I didn't even learn it the first time I went. So I had the sleeping bag and I would go camping. I'm like, why am I always so cold?
Right.
No,
definitely.
That's when I started Googling, and I was like, oh, that's because my sleeping bag will just keep me alive in the temperatures that I'm, taking it into. Because you, I was bringing some blankets too. Like the next time I went camping, I brought blankets and pull them up over my sleeping bag.
For sure.
But then as soon as I swapped out, I bought a new sleeping bag, now I'm toasty. Now I overheat.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I gotta unzip the side and vent this thing out.
I'd rather be that way than have to sit there and suffer, because I hate being cold. So I'm just like, this sucks. This is a real bummer.
Well, I'm with you. That's why I live in Arizona.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask, and oh, nope. Gosh, I keep forgetting that I wanted to bring up the fact that you hosted a shelter ride.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Do you have plans to host another one when all this stuff is done, or, was it a one-off thing?
Yeah, no, that was actually something that I wanted to start doing more of. And I actually wanted to, with the places that we donated to, the charities or the rescues, I actually wanted to visit each place that was local enough to go out for a day ride. And a lot of things just kind of happened, like weather conditions, or just certain places were so far out of reach that you had to travel in miles of gravel to get to, just, really far off areas. But I definitely plan to do more of that when things kind of get a little easier. But we were going to do a wolf sanctuary a little north of past LA. And yeah, that kind of just fell through, but I was actually able to do something for my birthday which was in January, where I had reached out to close friends and, women writers out in Julian, California, for another wolf sanctuary that I had found. And we didn't ride there, but I had gotten at least 30 people together, and we had gone out there and done kind of a little, a visit. And that was really cool. So I hope to do more group rides to shelters. That's actually one of the main focuses that I wanted to take. I want to take She Wolf in that direction. I felt like with everything going on, it was almost like a, hold in that. So yeah, that's definitely for the future.
So are you trying to knock off any trips off your list, maybe now that you get more free time, or are you trying to stay more local just because of finances and things? Or
yeah, right now I'm kind of not, just because of everything, and I'm just trying to stay safe right now, really, for the most part. I would have loved to do this was the year I wanted to take to do really intense trips. I've always wanted to do a Texas tour. There's a lot of weird stuff in the most random roads, and I'm all about weird things and architecture and just buildings and art stuff. And I just feel like there's certain parts of the US alone that there's a lot of that. So I would have loved to do that this year, but unfortunately due to everything I couldn't. But yeah, I'm all about just stopping at the most random, coolest. I'm really into vintage neon signs and stuff. So I always want to just do a neon sign tour. I love haunted stuff, so I want to go haunted abandoned places and stop and do a haunted tour thing. And yeah, I have a lot of ideas in my head as far as traveling on the bike. I just haven't gotten there yet, and I wanted to have a bigger tank for my bike. So I don't know if I guess I haven't mentioned this before, but I had inherited an old Dave's Red Out tank that was won by one of my friends. And it was from, I think, the third year, and it was painted by a local artist. He's like he paints tanks, and it was a beautiful tank, and it was like a peanut size. So it was about a 1.2 liter that only got me about 65 miles tops on the highway. So I couldn't rely on that. So my goal was like to get a bigger tank so that I could do longer rides. And as soon as I got that bigger tank, everything kind of crashed. So that was my goal. Like, okay, I'm going to get a bigger tank. I'm going to get a better seat. Like, this is going to happen. And then by that time, I'll be able to like just go anywhere. And yes, I have all the time in the world now, but unfortunately, just under the circumstances, I can't. But yeah, I'd love to do all those things for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are kind of taking it a little bit more seriously than others. There are thousands and thousands of people in Sturgis right now. Yeah. And so I didn't know where you fell kind of on that spectrum. If you were like, oh, maybe I won't go to Sturgis because there's so many people, but, I'll go to, I don't know, where there's one that's the Wild Gypsy Tour or something in Austin.
Yeah, I mean, like I got asked to do that, the Wild Gypsy Tour, to come and Bend, and I was okay about it for a while, and I had actually said yes to it, but then everything happened, and then it kind of just fell through, and I'm just not about the crowd right now. I'm trying to kind of stay away from it. That's just my personal opinion, and I have clients that I have to get back to, and I want to make sure that when I go back to work, I'm safe and healthy, and I don't want to risk anything. So I'm just trying to be, extra cautious about things in that sense. And yeah, I would have loved to go to I've never been to Sturgis, and I'm not so much for the crowd of Sturgis. It's just not my thing, but I would have loved to experience it. I would have loved to ridden outside, like on the outskirts of Sturgis, do like the Four Corners ride. There's a few other rides out there. The Devil's Tower, I think it is, it's out there. That would have been really cool to check out for sure. But I have any time to do that. That's not during Sturgis where it's just wild. So I feel like I would love to do Sturgis one day, but maybe not this year. Obviously not this year, but
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my final question to kind of wrap things up. You say that you are a horror movie fan or a horror buff. What is your favorite horror movie?
That's like the question that's so hard to answer because there's just so much out there. But if I had to choose right now, I would probably say The Shining. It's just an all-time classic. And I love Stanley Kubric and everything he's done. And I love the book. And I just love all the things Shining as far as like, anything in that category. And I just watched Doctor Sleep, which is like a spinoff of The Shining. It's kind of like what happens when he gets older and his story from that perspective and how the world's affected with just kind of what goes on in the past movie, and has a lot of flashbacks and stuff. So I really like that. It kind of opened my love for that. So.
Okay. Now, I hear you live in Santa Ana.
Mm-hmm. I live in Orange, but it's close.
Okay. So I'm not sure he counts as a horror author, but have you heard of Dean Koontz?
Dean, what is it?
Dean Koontz?
No, I have not.
So he is an author that is kind of a mix of sci-fi and horror, I'd say. Okay. And one of the first novels that I ever read and really, really loved was called Watchers. And it's about genetically modified dogs.
Weird.
Yeah. And so two of them escape this lab, and a lot of his books are based in the Santa Ana mountains or foothills or whatever. And really? So I wasn't sure if I think he lives in California. I don't know if he lives in Santa Ana or if he lives in Orange County, but he at least uses that area as a setting for a lot of his books. So I wasn't sure if you'd run across it or not.
I haven't. I mean, I wouldn't know what the Santa Ana Mountains would be considered if he's referring to like Santa Ana here, just because Santa Ana is very central, and I feel like mountains would be more like towards like Santiago Canyon, which is like north of Orange. But he could be. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the term Santa Ana Mountains, so I'd have to check him out. That sounds really interesting. It's definitely something up my alley, especially the modified dogs.
Yeah, I could be mistaken. I read that book. Well, I've read it multiple times, but primarily, I think I read it for the first time when I was 11 or 12. something like that. But anyway, so that's a very long time ago. But it's called Watchers. If you ever get a chance, I would definitely read it. There's a golden retriever and then kind of like a monster. Because obviously as you're doing experiments, some of them go right, some of them go wrong. Mm-hmm. Some of them have different applications, right? I don't want to give away too much if you end up reading it, but it's a super interesting story. If you like animals, I think that you would definitely like the book. And of course, like I said, he does tend to set his books in Santa Ana.
Cool. That's awesome. I'll definitely check that out. I'm super interested in always learning new things, horror or weird or sci-fi. All about it.
All right. Well, Nina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Modern Squid Podcast. If you'd like to follow along with Nina and She Wolf Moto Co., you can follow them on Instagram at She Wolf Moto Co. Her website is shewolfmotoco.com. As always, I'll have an episode page up with all the relevant links. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.